Hello and welcome to an episode of BTech. Today we're going to be talking about one of the more difficult types of problems, an intermittent electrical problem where the code thrown by the OBD2 is non-specific. This took me almost a year to completely figure out. The code P0121 tells us there's some problem in the accelerator pedal, throttle position sensor circuit. However, there are really three major components of this. There's the throttle pedal itself, there's the throttle position sensor, which is also the drive-by-wire motor, which is all one unit with the throttle body in this case, and then there's all the wiring in between. This is an old car from 2006 with 130,000 miles on it, so I figured it was worth replacing each component anyway. And when I first saw this code, I assumed it was probably the throttle body, since I've had throttle position sensors, and drive-by-wire systems go bad on me in the past in other vehicles. So we're going to look through and try to figure out what's going on in this car, and hopefully y'all learn something from my successes and my mistakes in this video. Today we're going to be replacing this. So this is a throttle body. It's drive-by-wire. So the drive-by-wire and the throttle position sensor and the throttle body are all one unit. They cannot be purchased separately. They have to all come together as a single unit. It's like $350 without shipping from Toyota. So this is a 2006 Rav4 at the 2GRFE. It's all-wheel drive. I love this motor. The motor's absolutely incredible. It's powerful. It's extremely reliable. Really, really like it. Now, mine started throwing a code for the TPS, which puts it in limp mode every so often, which is a problem, so I'm going to replace this today. There's two tubes going off here, so I'm going to mark one. 4 bolts. The one in the back here is, one of them is kind of difficult to get to. All 10 millimeter. Now, these are coolant lines, so need something to jam in there. Let's jam in some of the bolts. A little small, but we'll keep it from leaking too fast. So here's the original unit. This thing is not too bad for being 17 years, never cleaned once. You can see how they rivet on this piece. You know, Toyota had some lawsuits back in, I'm guessing it was the early 2000s or something, I forget exactly when, about throttles getting stuck open. Turns out the throttles weren't getting stuck open. It's just a psychological effect on people, but Toyota took it real seriously, so I'm guessing it's got something to do with why these units are all one piece and were rooted on here and they don't want you touching it. But that's just speculation on my part. This rubber gasket that was on there still looks perfect condition, so we'll clean it up and reuse it. Got some cotton swabs here to clean up the inside here. You can see it. Got some grime out. Here's our new throttle body. Integrated TPS. All nice and shiny. There we go. Alright, all done, so let's fire it up and see how it does. Alright, so we're back with the Rav, and we replaced the throttle position sensor a few months ago, and for a few months did not see any codes, and then we started getting codes again. This code is not specific to the throttle position sensor. It could be anything within the circuit, including the accelerator pedal. This car is a 2006, so it's worth replacing the accelerating pedal with a new genuine 2-to-1 Denso and seeing if that fixes the problem. If that doesn't do it, then we have to start tracing down the wiring in between. Now this looks like it should be pretty easy to install, famous last words. I just see 2 holes there for 2 bolts, and I see a sensor harness plug-in. You can see this thing's all sealed up with the don't mess with me bolts. We got some Torx here, we got some never take it off again without a welder here, more Torx there. So they definitely don't like people messing with these. I remember in the early 2000s Toyota was getting sued a bunch because people were pushing their accelerator down and thinking they were pushing on the brake. So that may be why. Anyway, let's get this on there and see if it fixes our problem. Let's get started. So down here, you can see, can we see? Yeah, you can see there's one of the bolts. Looks like it's 10 millimeter, if I guess. Here's our harness. Okay, calm down here. Let me see if I can. There we go. Just a simple squeeze here and pull version. So we got that off. I'll go get my wrenches, 10 millimeter on there. Pull this off, and then we'll put the new one on and give it a test. Now we got our 10 millimeter on. So let's see if I can get this off without blocking your view. So old one, you know, pretty intermittent problem. So if this thing was missing a contact or just got a little faulty over the years, we're not going to be able to easily pick it up on testing. What is interesting is this one doesn't have that one never take it apart again bolt like this one has. The new one has. Here's the old one, here's the new one. The never take it apart again bolt. Obviously you could take it apart if you really want to, but you'd have to really want to. This is their way of telling you we don't want you taking it apart. So let's get the new one on there, and we can start testing it out and see if that solves our problem. Let's get the harness back on. Click in place. There we go. There's our pedal. Happy as can be. Let's go test it out. And for testing on this thing, we're going to, besides just making sure it works at all, really going to have to drive it around for a couple of days or weeks, see if it throws the code again. And I'm going to, obviously for this project, I've been waiting really long to see if it really fixes the problem, because I don't want to make a video saying that I fixed the problem and kind of give you all a false sense for what's needed to actually fix the problem. If you're going to run across this, if I just shown the first video, you might think that everything's fine with your throttle position sensor change. Maybe for you it would be, but I kind of want to give people a full feel for what could be going on by really completely fixing it. This is also a difficult problem, honestly, because I really hate just kind of looking at a code and replacing stuff. It's like the least satisfying way of working on a car. It's really more satisfying to diagnose it. Because this problem is so sparse and intermittent, there's no way for me to reasonably put together a diagnostic approach to really narrow it down. We can't like just take the old throttle position sensor out and test it and expect it to not work. We could do that if it was constantly throwing a code, but it's really not. It's like once every few weeks, once every few months. So it's one of the more frustrating intermittent types of electrical problems, which are extremely difficult to diagnose. So this is why we are just replacing stuff, not blindly. Obviously we're only replacing things that are in the circuit that could throw this code, but it still is unsatisfying, and I want to acknowledge that. All right, let me test this. First, just going to see if the car starts up, and of course the pedal works at all, and then we'll do the long-term testing. Alright. As expected, it does work. There's no code at this exact second, so we'll do much longer term testing and follow up. Alright, so what I did was I took off the throttle position sensor harness. The wires were worn through, or almost worn through in a few spots, so we cut them. So some of them I had to cut closer to here, just because the amount of wire that wasn't damaged is pretty small. This red and green one were shielded, so I might try to wrap some aluminum foil or something around them to shield them. We'll see if that makes a difference. But the main problem was likely due to there being some worn through insulation here. So what we're going to do is we're going to crimp these to the main harness, and right now I'm going to put a larger piece of shrink wrap over all of this, and then put a larger piece of shrink wrap on here so that we can protect it and get them back in. Alright, so now we've shrink wrapped everything, and we have some loose shrink wrap around here too, so that once we crimp and shrink wrap the terminals, then we can pull this part of the shrink wrap down and over it to insulate it. Alright, so I found some of this awesome copper tape, and I wrapped it all the way to the top, and now we just put some heat shrink around it to hold it in place. Put some heat shrink around this part, and then we'll put some, once we get these crimped on, we'll actually wrap the rest of it, make sure that the whole thing is shielded. So we'll have this shielded some. I don't know if it's going to be enough, but doing the best we can. Alright, so you can see I have the wires, the receiving of the wires, so I have these all crimped on here. You can see here's the red and the green and how they're shielded here. So we'll have this shielding connect with our copper tape. So let's get it connected. Alright, so we got all the shrink wrap, we got our shielding all the way through and wrapped up. So ready to plug this back in, test it out. Alright, now with the longer wire, it's not being pulled on at the sensor anymore, so we got plenty of extra kind of looped around there. So I'm hoping that'll help keep it working well when it's time to test out. Alright, it's been about 1,000 miles now since we fixed the wires, and this last time we saw the code for the throttle position sensor accelerator circuit. Air on in here, it's pretty warm. So we got close to 134,000 miles on the Rav now. I will give a long-term update if I see the code pop back up again, but it was going on about every day when we fixed the wires, and then it hasn't turned on since then. You know, I added a lot of shielding to the wires that had stripped away, and the wires had worn through the insulation. It looks like they just got tucked in there at some point and were rubbing through the insulation and getting pulled on. What I did is I extended them, I added a bunch of the shrink wrap like you saw, and I added the copper shielding to the power wires. So I think actually it's going to be a pretty good fix. We'll see though, so I'll let you guys know if something changes. I'm going to wrap this video up. It's been 9 months now to make this video and to make sure that we're actually going through everything and getting it fixed. So hopefully it's helpful, and as always I hope someone out there can learn from my failures and my successes. Until next time.